A young woman who works for the United States Postal Service gets ready for work and then disappears. But she also called in sick. Something really strange is going on with this case. It's time to turn on the Searchlight. Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. We've got a real strange case to cover today. It is the case of Kierra Coles. And this is one of those cases that was a little maddening to look into because the information that's being presented by major media sources sometimes conflicts other articles that are written. We're going to wind up with a handful of questions that I just don't know the answer to by the end of this video, but hopefully we can try to clear up some of these questions along the way. Here we're looking at a poster put out by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service stating that there is a reward for a USPS letter carrier. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service is offering a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to the whereabouts of missing U.S. Postal Service employee Kierra Coles. They're seeking information to the location of Kierra Coles. She has been reported missing, last seen on Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. That's another one of those areas where I'm not quite sure if that date is correct. If you have any information regarding Coles' whereabouts, please contact the telephone numbers listed below. Coles is described as age 26. That's another detail I don't think is quite right. Female, she is black, she has brown eyes, she has at least 2 tattoos, a heart on her right hand, and on her back it says Lucky Libra. She weighs 125 pounds, stands at 5 foot 4 inches tall, and has a medium brown complexion and black hair. And then they have contact information, which I will also have in the description box of the video below. So first of all, what's going on with the age? There is another poster that has been put together and circulated about her disappearance. And we can see a copy of it here, and it actually lists her birth date as September 24th, 1991. So it appears that she went missing just about a week after her birthday, and she should now be 27 years old. Also, just take a quick look at this poster. They're saying that she was last seen in the area of 82nd and Coles. Just another strange point that we need some clarification on because we're seeing another location being reported in other areas. But let's continue with the news coverage here. NBCChicago.com. Pregnant postal worker. That's right. I forgot to mention. We have actually 2 people missing. She was about 3 months pregnant at the time that she went missing just a few weeks ago. Pregnant postal worker missing from south side of Chicago for nearly 1 week. And this is a picture of her with her mother. I just wanted to kind of show you guys that her mother has been working very hard to raise exposure to this case. Of course, she's quoted in many of these articles. She also did a YouTube interview with a new and upcoming YouTuber. His name is MarckoJ, and I'll have a link to that interview in the description box below. I'm very surprised that there's information that's in that interview that for some reason the major media sources are missing, including Nancy Grace, who also put out a recent episode of her podcast on this as well. But let's go ahead and continue. Kierra Coles is 3 months pregnant. So far, there are few clues in the disappearance. Her mother says Coles was excited about becoming a new mom and loves her job and her family. Phillips says that she talks to her daughter every day, but last week she got worried after not hearing from her. And Karen Phillips is her mother's name. So yeah, kind of mysterious circumstances. And this is one of those cases where we do have some footage to look at as well. So we will cover that. Moving on to WGN A neighbor's surveillance video shows Kierra Coles, 26, actually 27, dressed in her U.S. Postal Service uniform, heading to work on Tuesday, October 2nd. I'm going to try to clear these things up as we go. And I don't know what the better source is, but according to her mom and according to one of the other news reports, the footage is actually from Wednesday morning, October 3rd. I'm not sure why they're reporting it as Tuesday, October 2nd here. And of course, if the footage is from Wednesday, October 3rd, then we do know that she was actually last seen on October 3rd, but pretty much all the posters I'm seeing are saying October 2nd. In the video, she passes her car and goes across the street, then disappears out of frame. She was last seen near 82nd Street and Coles Avenue, so there's that address again. She's seen something that made her turn around that fast and cross the street, and her car was on the other side of the street, Dan Perkins, her mother's boyfriend, said. We're going to actually watch the footage, but essentially he's explaining it very well. Her car is parked on the side of the street that's closest to the camera, and we see her go across the street, basically on the opposite side of where her car is. Why she would have done that, I have no idea. Maybe a couple of ideas we're going to touch on as we go through this. Even though she was dressed for work, a U.S. Post Office spokesperson said she called in sick that morning. And one of the biggest pieces of information I got from the interview that MarckoJ conducted is her mother was very clear that the person she spoke to at the post office said they were certain that they were speaking to Kierra, that it was her that certainly called in sick. Her mom was pretty adamant about that. When I first started looking into this, it's one of the things I was wondering right off the top of my head, could someone else have placed that call to buy some time or to, kind of muddy the waters of the investigation? But according to her mother, she's very, very confident that they actually spoke to Kierra. Now, let me also point out, I'm not certain where the assumption about her being dressed for work comes from. You guys tell me when we look at the footage, but based on what I can see in the footage, I can't make a clear determination that she is actually dressed for work. There might be some other things that she's taken with her that might lead us to believe that she was actually going to work, but her mother in the interview with MarckoJ stated that Kierra actually took Monday and Tuesday off, planned. That was planned. They let her take those 2 days off. Her mom said it was for her to take care of something. I don't know what that something is. I don't know if it could be related to this case. But then the Wednesday that she was supposed to go back to work, that's the day that she calls in sick. So she had a few days off leading up to that. Now, we're also going to bump into some other conflicting info that makes it seem like her sister actually picked her up from work on Monday, which I don't understand if her mom says that she had Monday off. So just there's a lot of discrepancies in what's going on with this. And unfortunately, we do have a lot of media sources covering it, but it doesn't seem like we really have that one journalist that is kind of digging in and trying to clear this stuff up. I mean, it's a mishmash of information. I'll be honest with you guys, it's really frustrating. I haven't seen a case this badly reported in a long time. It's one thing to just not report on a case. It's another thing to have all this conflicting information and no one really trying to do anything to clear it up. It's a little frustrating. Her sister, Kimberly Phillips, last saw her sister when she picked her up from work last Monday. Her mother called Thursday and asked if she had talked to her. Quote, "I immediately went to Snapchat. She snapped everywhere and I saw there was no story, so it kind of puzzled me," Phillips said. Phillips contacted her boyfriend, the father of Coles's unborn child. That's about all it says in this article, but we're going to get some more details by the end of the video on that. Family went to Coles's apartment at 81st Street and Vernon Avenue to check on her. So 81st Street and Vernon Avenue, not the same as 82nd Street and Coles Avenue, where she was supposedly last seen. However, based on comments I'm hearing from the family about the footage is from where her home was, which should be 81st Street and Vernon Avenue. And I know it sounds like we're just talking about a block or something like that, but according to the maps I'm pulling up, we're not. We're talking over 3.5 miles difference between these two locations. So I have no idea what this sighting at Coles and 82nd Street is about. I don't know if there is maybe another Coles Street that maybe I got the wrong one on the map here or something, but just trying to put the basics of this story together. Once again, I'm at another point where it's not really making sense, and I don't know why it's being reported in this way. Jumping over to fox32chicago.com, we're going to watch some of the footage together here. I'm going to turn off the audio. We'll just talk about it as we're looking at it. But there you can see her walking, and that walkway, the walkway that she was just walking near that kind of continues off to the building to the left, that is supposedly the walkway that actually leads to where she lives. So why she's passing it, I don't know. And then you can see she gets to the corner, she turns around, she comes back the other way, she crosses the street. And here we can see a little bit, I wish this pause was better, guys. I'm sorry they got all this junk all over the screen, but that's about the best shot I can get of her clothing. And it looks to me almost like she's wearing, it looks like kind of maybe a blue dress and some black leggings or something like that. I looked through dozens and dozens of photos of postal uniforms. The only USPS dress that I could find was from the 1960s. Now, what I do see some people do is they're actually wearing the blue button-up USPS shirt, and it's long. So it's possible that she could be wearing that shirt. However, I'm telling you guys, I'm struggling with this because we have a picture of her. Here she is. And she is wearing USPS gear in this actual photo. If you look right at the bottom of the photo, you can see she's carrying, I think, a sweater that has the logo on it. And she's also got, if you look just right near the bottom, you can see the typical pants that postal carriers wear. They've got the black stripe going down the side and the kind of light blue. So I don't really know. Maybe she has multiple uniforms or something like that. But from what I'm able to determine, I don't have enough information to come to this conclusion that she's actually dressed up in her work clothes. So as she walks down the street, she actually walks out of frame, and her vehicle is parked further to the right than the camera captures. It's assumed that she might have gotten to the vehicle even though she's on the opposite side of the street, because there are some items that are found in there, which we'll cover as we keep going forward here. So moving over to chicago.cbslocal.com, her family said they found her car parked on her block with her cell phone and purse still inside. Cole's family said police have searched her car and home. Relatives say she was excited about having her first baby, and it's unlike her not to contact her family. So already a little strange. I've been reading a lot of comment threads on this case. A lot of people are wondering, why would she leave her purse and her cell phone in a vehicle? It's just the perfect opportunity for someone to do a smash and grab and to run off with her purse and her phone. So I'm not sure why it's left in her vehicle, but it is. Cole's family has plastered her neighborhood with flyers. They've been out there several times, and they actually got on things very quickly. They even wound up holding a vigil only about a week after she went missing. But let's learn some more details at Chicago Tribune. Cole's has worked as a mail carrier for about 3 years. Phillips reported her daughter missing on October 4th after she hadn't heard from her for 2 days, and calls to her cell phone went straight to voicemail. Officers did a well-being check at her apartment and did not locate the woman. Quote, "I talk to her every day," Phillips said. "I knew something was wrong. It's just not like her." Regina Kennedy, a family friend, said Cole's was last seen on October 2nd when she went to an appointment with her aunt and a friend. So that is clearly a different sighting. Maybe that's where this discrepancy is coming up about where she was last seen. Maybe that appointment that she went to with her aunt and a friend was actually at 82nd and South Coles. Maybe that explains the trouble that I'm having putting the map together. Kennedy said the post office told family members Coles called off work on Wednesday. She said the family wanted to confirm on her cell phone that she was the one who called in, but couldn't access the phone due to a passcode. Kennedy said Coles had a lunch bag in her car as if she had planned to go to work on Wednesday. Now, I've only seen that reported here at the Chicago Tribune. I've seen it mentioned somewhere else, but they were citing this as the source as well. All the other publications I've seen on this, no one is talking about this lunch bag at all. So once again, I think we have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. This is a family friend. This is what the family friend is saying. That's about as much as we could put into it. This isn't the same as a spokesperson for the investigation saying, yes, we did find her lunch bag in her car. And once again, I feel like I'm fighting this urban legend that is kind of sweeping up this story. That's why I'm kind of critical about the outfit. I can't look at that footage and say, yep, she's obviously dressed up like a USPS employee. I've seen quite a few USPS employees in my days, and it's not enough. At best, maybe she's wearing a blue button-up shirt that is extending beyond her coat. But for a postal carrier, I typically don't see them dressed like that. They typically at least have the shorts or the pants. They have another garment that goes with the button-up shirts as well, and I'm not seeing that in the footage. She's got family and friends that know her much better than me. Maybe one of them has seen her wear this outfit before and they know that that is something that she wears to work, but I'm not seeing any quotes or any information to really support that conclusion either. So it's one of these things. I just feel like it's really easy to popularize a story about we've got a missing USPS employee that called in sick to work, but actually was leaving for work, was dressed up in her clothes, even had her lunch bag. Her lunch bag was found in the car. I've heard her mom interviewed a few times about this. Her mother has never mentioned the lunch bag. Her sister has not mentioned the lunch bag. So this is the only mention of it. I don't know. I'm really struggling with this case because I'm already finding so many discrepancies, and then trying to take something like this at face value becomes very difficult. Coles loves working as a mail carrier and worked hard to become a permanent employee, Phillips said. She planned to get pregnant once she secured steady employment. Everything was looking good for her, Phillips said. Everything was how she planned it. Moving on to another article at WGN TV.com. This is about the vigil that was held. Family and friends gathered to pray and hand out flyers. And this is from October 10th of 2018. So at best, she's missing a week and a day. I think if that October 3rd sighting is the footage, if that happened on that day, we're actually talking about just a week later that they actually already had a vigil. So very fast acting. Families really getting out there, going door to door, handing out posters. I just want her to come home safe, said Kimberly Phillips, her mother. I just want her to come home. Another relative said it's been a hard time for the family. It's just rough right now, Kenneth Lee, Cole's great uncle, said. Right now, it's just a missing person, but we're hoping for the best. I certainly agree with them. We're hoping for the best too. And thankfully, this is a case where it's only been a few weeks, compared to some of the cases we look at this channel that can go on months or years or even longer. This is a pretty young case. We still have a lot of possibilities for an outcome on this case. That might not be the worst thing in the world, and I'm certainly hoping for that myself. Back to NBCChicago.com. Reward offered in case of missing Southside postal worker. This is on October 13th, 2018. The National Association of Letter Carriers is offering a reward of $3,500 for information in the case. Believe it or not, we're going to find a contradiction even in that information. So far, there are few clues in the disappearance. Phillips says everything was in place in her daughter's home in the 8100 block of Vernon, with her car still parked on the street. During a search of the residence Tuesday, police found her purse and cell phone. Now, hold on a second, because I've seen the family interviewed. I've seen the words literally coming from their lips. The family says they found her purse and her cell phone, and it was found in her vehicle. Now we have an article saying, nope, it was the police and they found her purse and her cell phone in the home. Very big difference here. Once again, I don't know if I'm fighting some urban legend about this thing to make it seem even weirder, like she was actually going to work when maybe she wasn't. But at this point, I'm going to err with what I heard from the family. I believe, well, not only that, I've seen footage of them actually holding the purse. They put it in a plastic bag. Which is strange to me because I don't know why police might not want to process that. But of course, this is not a criminal investigation at this point. It's just a missing person. So I don't know. Guys. I'm just going to point out these inconsistencies as we roll through this. It's just such a tough case when you have things like this going on. Over at WGNTV.com, mail carriers join search for missing postal worker, October 14th, 2018. I just really wanted to call this out. it's amazing to me to see the support that the Postal Service is put in and the Postal Inspection Service in terms of putting up money for the reward. And now we literally hear that we've got, fellow postal workers pounding the pavement for her. Nearly 2 weeks after 27-year-old Kierra Coles was last seen, her fellow postal workers joined the search effort Sunday in Chatham, passing out flyers with hopes someone will recognize her. Coles was last seen leaving her apartment. She had moved into the area very recently. Some more information that you will get if you listen to the YouTube interview with her mother is that she had only lived in this area for a few months, and she only had her vehicle for a short time as well. Now, a few things occur to me about that. In the footage, we see her walk, and it looks like she kind of walks off in the wrong direction. I'm wondering if maybe this is a new area to her. Maybe she figured out she was walking the wrong way for where she was trying to get. Now, you might be wondering, well, why is she walking away from her vehicle? She should know where she parked her car. But keep in mind, we have her sister saying that she picked her up from work just a few days before this. So I'm not convinced that she was driving herself. Why is her sister coming to pick her up from work if she's got her own new vehicle that she's only had for a few months? I think there's something else going on here in terms of her possibly getting rides from people. And we just don't know. Maybe there was someone she was meeting. Maybe someone was supposed to pick her up to take her somewhere. Some people are certainly theorizing that if she was wearing a work uniform, maybe she was lying to someone about where she was going. We're going to learn more about her boyfriend. We'll kind of kick around that theory a little bit more once we get to that. Now, what was this thing that I said about the reward maybe also being funny, the reward that was put up by the Postal Service? Well, here's an article that was released just earlier today on the day that I'm recording this, October 16th, 2018. $28.5 thousand reward offered. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service said Coles works as a letter carrier and is offering a $25,000 reward for information. Community activist Andrew Holmes said he was also offering a $1,000 reward, and the National Association of Letter Carriers was offering a $2,500 reward. So we've got one article that just kind of wrote Andrew Holmes right out of it, lumped his money in with the National Association of Letter Carriers. I don't know. Is it really pertinent to the disappearance in this case? Probably not, but I'm just telling you guys, I'm seeing so many conflicting points of information. It's a little nutty. Over at another article at abc7.chicago.com, Coles, 27, they got her age right here. Chicago police are calling the case a non-suspicious missing person case. So, and there's something to that statement that kind of grabs me, because we know that if the footage is accurate, we know that she is acting of her own volition. It might seem strange. Some of her family seems to be under the impression that something scared her when she walked off to that one side of the street, and that's why she turns around. She comes back the other way, crosses the street away from her vehicle for some reason, which I don't know. If I saw something that intimidated me, there's probably two places I'd want to be, either inside my front door of my home or in my vehicle, so I could try to get away from whatever I was scared of. But she doesn't quite do that. She goes across the street and then out of frame. But I do think we have to assume that she made it to the vehicle at some point because her purse and her cell phone are in there. One thing missing from her purse, at least according to her mother, is her actual wallet. I believe where she would keep her cards and her money is missing. And I've seen conflicting information, but I think the keys are missing as well. I've seen one article that says the keys were found in the house. I can't find anything else that supports that, but not found in her vehicle. So Huffington Post has also reported on this. Coles' older sister, Kimberly Phillips, told Chicago's WBBM News Radio that Coles is a responsible adult. Quote, "It's not like she's on drugs," Kimberly Phillips said. "She worked her butt off." Authorities have not yet said whether they have interviewed the father of Coles' child. And of course, we're talking about a situation where recently pregnant, 3 months into it, We don't really know much information about the father at this point at all. Does he want this child? Does he not want this child? Let's go ahead and continue with the articles and see if we can learn just a little bit more from the official sources. And then I'll also share with you a little information that I learned from the YouTube channel, MarckoJ as well, which I kind of consider rumor territory, but we'll cover just a little bit of that. Police have not yet said if they believe foul play was involved, but her family said they have been unable to reach Coles or her boyfriend since they reported her missing 13 days ago. Really bizarre turn in this whole case for him to not be available. A lot of people would think that if this is the mother of a child of yours or if you guys are expecting a child together, that you would probably really care about her well-being. You might help in the search efforts or at least show up for the vigil. Basically, according to the information that we're seeing here, seems like he's not participating in that way. It also notes that she has been with her boyfriend for 5 years. And then finally, we get a quote from her mother. "I'm too scared to feel anything. I don't want to fear the worst." So what else did I learn over at MarckoJ's channel? He's actually named the boyfriend. He has a few different videos about the boyfriend. It's not information that I feel confident in sharing here. YouTube has rules in their terms of service about sharing what could be deemed as personal information. And it seems like Marco's doing okay, but I'm a little worried, honestly, about his channel getting knocked for that. I've been knocked for it before. Basically, if it's not reported by a major media source, it's really hard to defend the position of we're talking about a public figure here. So I can't give you guys his name, but if you go to Marco's channel, you could probably find his name pretty easy. There is some information also at Web Sleuths that seems to suggest that the boyfriend might be married or at least have another long-term girlfriend and could possibly work at the post office as well. He could also be an employee there. So if he does have a long-term girlfriend or a wife, we now have someone that could be potentially very upset at learning that possibly he was fathering a child with someone else. And then there is some information that I bumped into at Web Sleuths. I don't know if it really ties to this case in particular, but I want to share it with you guys because it really shocked me. I've never seen a study like this done before. So quick thank you to GenderSnap, a verified professional pediatric nurse, and she included a study that was done. This is from ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. And it is about intimate partner homicide among pregnant and postpartum women. For the method of this research, this was an analysis of pregnancy-associated homicides occurring from 1993 to 2008 among Maryland residents using linked birth and death certificates, medical examiner charts, police records, and news publications. So what did they find? Homicides were the leading cause of death during pregnancy and the first postpartum year. Now, we're talking about a sample set that isn't necessarily the biggest thing in the world. Keep in mind, this is in Maryland, and based on what I'm seeing here, their sample set was about 110 cases that they looked into here. But still a very strong conclusion that they draw from that. Even for them to be, half is one thing, but they're stating here that it's fairly strong. Let's go ahead and continue with their conclusions here. Women who were African American, younger than 25 years, and unmarried were at the highest risk for homicide. Firearms were the most common method of death. Of the cases in which the victim-offender relationship could not be identified are excluded, then 63.2% of homicides were committed by an intimate partner. I was just completely shocked to see any numbers that would support that type of argument. But like I said, I feel weird because a sample set of 110 cases, I just wish they would have blown that up a little bit, maybe taken it to at least 500 or something along those lines. But it does seem to point, and we've looked at cases here on the channel, several different types of cases, case cracked episodes, Searchlight episodes, and in particular with Searchlight episodes, if we hear that there's an argument, there's a couple, all of a sudden they get in an argument, one of them goes missing. We've seen some pretty bad outcomes in some of those cases. We don't quite have that happening here. We don't have the neighbor that comes up and says, I heard that there was a fight that was going on over there. We don't have any friends from her social circle coming forward and saying, well, I knew that he wasn't happy. He did not want this baby. Some of the information you might see on that other YouTube channel I keep mentioning kind of alludes that there might be some information like that floating out there, but certainly too much in the rumor mill for me. But the fact that her boyfriend doesn't seem to be cooperating with the family, at least, certainly raises some flags, certainly raises some concern. I don't think that necessarily is strong enough for us to draw a conclusion and say, well, it's obvious that it's her boyfriend. But when we're talking about numbers like we just talked about in this study, he has to be looked at. He has to be investigated. And I'm sure the investigators are going through that process. Is he going to be ruled out? If he is ruled out, is that going to be public information? I would like to think that they would do that because it should be better for him if there were some news stories to kick out and say, hey, police have checked into his alibis. And then that's another strange thing about this whole thing that's going on. We know that she's leaving home. I don't know if they were living together. I kind of assume not if the information I'm hearing is accurate about him being in another relationship. But how is she going to fake him out about her going to work? One of the theories is that she's lying to someone about the fact that she's going to work. So she's putting on her clothes and like, hey, I'm off to work, but she's really going somewhere else. Could that be that she's having another relationship and there's another party that's involved in this in some way? If there is, could that person be upset about the fact that she is now pregnant by someone else? We might have another party here that we don't know about that could still fit this intimate partner that we're talking about in these types of numbers. But we're not hearing about that from at least her family. The friends that are speaking publicly, we're not hearing any mention of a love triangle from her side of it. So I really don't know. But she's obviously not trying to fool her boyfriend if it's true that her boyfriend works for the post office as well, and if it's true that he works at the same location that she's at. So I don't know. A lot of weird contingencies all over this case, and it's really hard to keep my head straight with trying to figure out what's going on with this one. And I do want to put the offer out to her sister or her mother, if you would like to come on the channel, and if you have some more information to help us clear up some of this, please reach out to me. You can email me at john@lordenarts.com. We could just set up a Skype session, do a video chat, and share that information with everyone and try to really clear up some of this case. Because there's way too many questions. I don't feel great about the timeline. We don't even know when the footage is really from. And that would be important to know just in terms of the time frame. It'd be nice to know when the footage was shot and when the phone call happened of her calling in sick so that we could tell, did she call in sick before she left and went out the front door? Or did she call in sick after that point, which would make us assume that she had her phone to be able to do that, but we don't know if it really happened from her cell phone because it needs to be unlocked. I'm telling you guys, my brain is just all over the place on this case, but I'm certainly feeling for her family, and her mother in particular is just really seeming to be struggling with this. She's very, very worried. Of course she should be. It has now been 2 weeks, and it just looks really strange. It looks really strange when we have a boyfriend that is staying out of contact. And does he have a reason to? If he does have a relationship, possibly. There's certainly that aspect to it. Maybe he just doesn't want to be around this right now because it could blow up another relationship that he has or something along those lines. But I'd really be struggling with it if I knew that this is the woman that was carrying my child and she had gone missing. Might be time to do the right thing and to let everyone know the truth of what's going on and to start trying to help these efforts in some way. But I don't know. I couldn't find any GoFundMe or anything like that currently going on for this case. I actually couldn't even find a Facebook page. And of course, it's only been 2 weeks, so there's no NamUs record yet. There's still a lot of parts of this process that are going to hopefully come to fruition, or actually, I hope not. I hope she's found and we don't have to go to these next steps. But of course, as usual, I'll be keeping an eye on this case, and we can see if we figure out where Kierra is. And I'll let you all know if we have any developments with this case as we go forward. So just another heartbreaker on Searchlight, guys. I'm really feeling it with this one because quite honestly, I wasn't sure I was really going to talk about this or not. I feel like the media on this case is just completely dropping the ball, and I feel like they're letting the family down. I feel like they're letting Kierra down, and I don't know. It's one thing to try to be helpful and to try to raise exposure. And, there's articles I was bumping into that were just like literally copies of the poster. Like, she went missing from here and here's how old she is and here's a picture. And I get it. That's one level of involvement with trying to help in this case. But there's this weird aspect that I bumped into when looking into this case today where I felt like people were acting like they were more involved than that, but not really. Like they did it enough to, they got some quotes from the family, and you'll see those quotes copied across all these different major media companies. But the details of the case, why has no one locked down the time frame of the footage versus the time frame of the phone call? Why has no one tried to clear up when the footage was taken, where that actual last sighting happened? Why do we have so many loose questions about where was her purse found? Where was her cell phone found? How come someone else is saying her keys and her wallet were found in her house? Is that accurate? Is it not? Why do we say that, the police found her stuff? Nope, the family found her stuff. I've never quite seen a case like this where the information is just, it feels completely haphazard. And I'm just trying to do my best to make sense out of it. And I'm sure the family's frustrated too. So once again, if you guys want to help us figure this out, help us raise exposure to the truth as you know it, please contact me and let's work together to do that, because this case really deserves it, obviously. Keep in mind, we've got 2 missing people with this case. It's not just one person. Okay, guys, moving on to comments from last week's episode. But before we get there, I want to give a quick thank you to Orange Everything, who has increased, if I could say it right, increased their pledge on Patreon. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. I am updating the Patreon page, so the Geek and Dorks graphic is now gone. I'm trying to figure out reward levels and what I can offer for rewards, so you might want to check it out. It's certainly going to be going through some changes over the next week or two as I try to beef it up a little bit. Also, not that I really talked about this on the channel too much, but Patreon doesn't want us to do raffles anymore. They're worried that that could be seen as a form of gambling because you have to pay to be part of the patron crowd. And then if they get prizes, it could seem like it was gambling. So no more raffles there, unfortunately, but I'm still working on some ways where I could do some kind of cool giveaways or build it into the donation tiers, which is what Patreon really wants me to do. So I'm working on all that right now. If you have suggestions about what you'd like to see in those tiers, please include them in the comments below. So last week's case, where is Matthew Weaver? This is about the young man whose car was found in Topanga Canyon. Car was tore up. He was there through the middle of the night for some reason. Seems like he was there into the next morning, but we got some questions about that because we basically have a phone call that was unanswered, and then we have a couple of text messages. When it comes to text messages, you can fake that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and check out some of your comments, starting with DaCosta. Every time drugs are involved, especially heavy drugs like methamphetamine, heroin, or cocaine, it puts an X factor into the whole thing because you really cannot put logic into it. You think and make decisions while under the influence that would make no sense for the sober mind. And take into consideration that he was feeling depressed about the breakup. I have a bad feeling about this one. DaCosta, thank you so much for sharing that insight. You raise a really important question, and I love how you put it. It does put an X factor in it. And that's one of those things where it can even be tough for family that thinks that, I know Matthew. I know he wouldn't do this kind of stuff. You probably know Matthew when he's not on these types of narcotics. You probably don't know where that could take him when he is and what kind of things he could be capable of. So I certainly agree. And at least according to the information that we got from the girl that he had spent some time with before he went back out into the canyon, it seems like there was some type of narcotic use that was going on. So I think you're right. We do have X factor in this case. And quite honestly, there's a very good sign of that because of the way his vehicle was found, which was a big part of the conversation here. Let's go ahead and continue with Whitney Dallin. The only reason someone would drive crazy fast on a dangerous road in the middle of the night while their car is falling apart is if they were being chased. Whitney, yeah, I've really been racking my brain about that aspect of this case as well. What would cause him to do that? And I don't know if I went into it too much in last week's episode, but this was a car that actually used to belong to his father. His father gave it to Matthew. I don't think his father changed the registration because police basically went to his father and they were like, hey, we found your car out in the middle of this canyon. So there's also that aspect, are you really going to tear up the car that your dad gave you? And especially that type of car. I mean, it's a nice car. So I kind of agree with you. I thought that there might have been some type of chase that was going on here initially as well, but we do have that camera at that gate. And it's, according to the information we have about the footage, there was no vehicle following him. So my mind after that goes to wondering, was he even driving? It'd be something else if it wasn't your car and you wanted to just tear that thing up and, go off-roading with it or run it into the ground or something. Not even necessarily as an emotional reaction, trying to hurt Matthew or his property, but specifically because, hey, it's just someone else's car and maybe you're on something yourself and you just go shred it. I don't know. But Queen Bee has a good point as well. Or alternatively, drug use led to paranoia episode and there wasn't anyone after him, but he believed there was. Now that would certainly support some of the conditions that we're talking about here. No car scene following him. Maybe we are seeing the action of him being terrified as he's driving through there. We do know we have those text messages that make it sound like he's been through something and he's scared of something that's going on. So honestly, Queen Bee, I think you might be onto something with that suggestion. Definitely a good one. Low Blow Champ says, wow, for sure doesn't sound good with the car being banged up. He wouldn't have kept driving with his car falling apart along the way. Sounds like someone who didn't care about the car drove it through there as fast as they could take it. But also, if he was killed out there, you would think there would be some evidence or a body found nearby. And the text messages also don't help. Texting is the last thing I would do in real danger. You would want to call and talk to someone ASAP. Really good point, particularly about the phone call. And are you really going to call this girl that you just hung out with that night before? Even if you are in a circle of people that are using narcotics of some kinds, don't you have some other friends that you're able to call if you're really in trouble? Like, a best friend that you've known for a number of years or something along those lines. Maybe you're not going to call your parents because of what's going on, but I'm pretty sure there's someone in your circle that's probably more important than a girl that you've been hanging out with for maybe just a number of weeks. If you really, really needed help. And of course, we don't have that happening here. And we don't have this girl really coming forward. Her identity's obviously been kept away from the media. No quotes from her at all. It does make me wonder about what's going on from her perspective with this as well. And Hottie Girl 05, once again, back on the channel with a comment that I want to close with. I'm hopeful that he will be found. I'm thinking that he might have met with foul play, but maybe not to the point of death. I think that someone else is involved, and I hope your family has the support they need while going through this. Also know we are here for support for your family as well. I couldn't have said it better myself, Hottie Girl 05. Thank you so much for putting it so succinctly and sharing that with everyone in the comments. I really appreciate your touch when it comes to closing out some of these comment threads. And yeah, Weaver family, there's a lot of people out here that care about Matthew. We want to see this thing solved. We want to see him come home. And you never know what the outcome can be in these cases. There are many cases we've looked into and we could not anticipate the outcome. So I hope that you guys are keeping hope alive. And if there's anything that we can do for you, please feel free to reach out to me. I would absolutely appreciate being able to help you guys in any way that we can. Thank you so much, everyone, for caring about these cases like I do. I truly appreciate having you there. Take care, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new Brain Scratch on the Lord and Arch channel.